Do you agree with the statement that as an industry, we don't have a way to measure productivity? And if you do agree with that statement, can you think of a better way than number of deploys to measure it?
I have to say yes to the first statement because every single owner, every business collaborator, every stakeholder has always said to me, why don't I get stuff done faster?
Welcome to Tiptoe, where tech meets the road, where CTOs share the tales and the comments. From startups to big names and their visions unfold. How many CTOs will share their stories untold?
Welcome, Brad, to this week's episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take to Screw in One Light Bulb?
How many CTOs does it take to screw in one light bulb?
Well, it just depends on how many light bulbs you
How
have.
many light bulbs you have?
I don't know. I don't even know where that comes from.
I'm Brad Hefta-Gaub.
Yep, he's Brad Hefta-Gaub. My name is Scott Porad. We are here to help try to demystify and figure out some of the most puzzling aspects of software engineering management. And today we have the topic of all topics to discuss.
What's that topic?
I'm going to try to not use loaded words.
Okay. Don't say urgency.
I'm not going to say urgency and I'm not going to say velocity.
Try not to say
I'm just
velocity.
going to say people want our teams to get stuff done faster.
Yeah. Wait. We talked a little bit about this in an episode in the past.
I'm sure we
And what
have.
you actually did this great job where we talked about this for a long time, and then you go, you know what I think it is? It's get stuff done faster.
That's right.
So like we got to be clear on the stuff. We got to be clear when it's done, and we want to do that faster.
And let's talk about the faster
Yeah.
because, to my knowledge, nobody in this industry has figured out how to measure engineering productivity. Either we make what I'll broadly call process improvements, but they could be improvements to technology. We make improvements that allow us to get stuff done faster.
Mhm.
And then the effect of that is projects that were large now become medium, and projects that were extra large now become large.
Mhm.
And we don't see any of the gains because the bucket just gets filled up again, right?
Right.
And then the purists, like the Scrum purists, say, well, a story point really isn't a measure of time, it's a measure of business value. So if we're doing that the right way, then you would see that your team is delivering more business value per unit of time.
Mhm.
But then it comes down to, well, who's picking the projects and are we picking the right projects? And that's not really a very good measure in my mind either.
Mhm.
So I have had a hypothesis in my mind for quite some time that I have not had the chance to test out,
Okay.
but I might get the chance to test it out in the near future at my current place of employment.
Mhm.
And I want to run that hypothesis by you and see what you think.
I'm all ears.
So, to get to this hypothesis, first I have to take a big step back and I have to invite everyone to come read my ebook that is not yet written. But just remember to check back on this podcast every few months to see if the ebook is out there.
Okay.
And it's called How to Turn Around an Engineering Team.
Mhm.
And I sort of have a process I follow. I've done it a few times. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I've seemed to have figured out something that works a little bit. Step one is operations. Is your system stable? There's no point in trying to build new features if your sites or your app or whatever is always crashed.
Yep.
Step two is be predictable. Try and have good estimation accuracy, deliver on time. There's no point in trying to be early. You can't be early if you're not, you can't be early if you're not even on time, right?
Right.
So first, get your situation stable. Second, learn how to deliver on schedule. Then once you're getting there on time, try to get there a little bit faster.
Right. You
Okay.
said something recently to me on a previous episode. You said there's no point in going fast if you arrive late.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and I have a few key metrics that I pay attention to for each of these. In the stability space, it's pretty simple. Raw number of incidents, however you want to define an incident, raw number of incidents, and mean time to response, right? How many problems are we having, and are we getting there quickly? And if you're not having very many problems, and when you have them, you're getting to the fire quickly to put it out, that's good. You might also want to look at mean time to recovery if it's taking you a long time to fix them. But typically, it doesn't take people that long to fix them. It's just like, do we have the operational awareness to have the pagers and all these things to like set us off? And do we have the prevention to prevent them from happening in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of look at those KPIs. And then for accuracy, I pretty much just look at estimation accuracy um, for whatever given period of time. What did you say you were going to do, and how much of it did you get done? And I personally aim for 80%. 100% is easy. Everyone just sandbags, no problem. 80%, you're still striving a little bit, and you got to give your stakeholder, you got to coach your stakeholders and say, hey, we're going to miss. Like that's part of the plan is we're going to miss. So you need to have some grace with the team. If you want 100%, we can give you 100%, but you won't get as much done because we're going to
Yeah.
put tons of
You
buffer
get
in
too
there, right?
conservative.
Right, exactly. So primarily look at estimation accuracy. You can look at it at a sprint level. You could look at it at a quarterly level. There's a lot of ways you can look at it, but just how good are you at predicting things are going to get done?
Mm-hmm.
And that forces a lot of good behaviors. You have to know, what do you want us to do? You have to understand your system. So you know how to change it. There's a lot of good behaviors. We probably talked about that bunch here. I could talk about it a bunch more. And then the last step is going faster. And nobody knows how to do this. We just talked about this. But my hypothesis is this: just count the number of deploys, or to be more precise, deploys per person, right? Because I can get more deploys by just hiring more people and you get more deploys. But just count the number of deploys. That's one of the DORA metrics for people who know DORA metrics. I think it's the number one DORA metric is deploy frequency. So you count your number of deploys, and you also have to balance that by looking at, your incident rate and your bug rate, and are you maintaining your quality. But here's my hypothesis: you count the number of deploys because what will happen is, if you count the number of deploys, is that will incentivize people deploying more frequently, which means they'll have to do smaller things.
Mm-hmm.
And just like in nature, smaller stuff goes faster,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you'll get a bunch of velocity gains. And either you're getting smaller stuff because you're designing smaller projects, or you still have big projects, but your engineers are shipping smaller bits and putting them behind a feature flag, which has a whole other set of benefits behind it. You're getting quality improvements because smaller bits are easier to test. And if there's a problem, they're easier to understand what the problem is. You get whole host of health benefits from smaller particles flying through the system.
Mm-hmm.
And so just measure how many deploys per person. I mean, not like individually, Brad, how many deploys did you do,
Mm-hmm.
but you just have to account for the fact there's
Yeah,
bigger and
average
smaller
deploys
teams.
per team member or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And include all your people, your QA people, your product managers, include everybody, right? Because you're not, you because if you add 10 more product managers, you must be doing it because you think it'll help you go faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
So average deploys per people, and then start asking questions. Well, what would it take us to have more deploys,
Mm-hmm.
right? We need to ship smaller bits. We need to make it so it takes less time to ship. Um, Whatever, you can start asking those questions. So I've had this idea in mind for quite a while. I really haven't, in several years, haven't got to a spot where I needed to pull this tool out of my toolkit. And I just want to know what you think of it.
Well, let's see. I think it's an interesting idea.
While you're thinking, can I throw one other thing in there?
Sure, totally.
It goes back to urgency.
Yeah.
Brad, have you ever had a CEO or an SLT stakeholder say to you, I just don't feel like there's enough urgency?
Yes.
I don't know what that means. Does it mean you don't see people running up down the hall
Yeah.
setting the house on fire? I have this other part of the hypothesis is, and this is just vanity, but it's like, if it's a machine gun of deployments, pew, 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 just stuff's going out over. Look, we ship this, we ship this, we ship this.
Yeah.
Like people will feel like, oh my goodness, that team, they're just firing on all pistons. They're just shipping stuff
Yeah.
25 times a day. There's stuff going out. It's crazy.
Right. Well, so we literally had an episode recently about this. It was all like urgency. And we even called it like CTO
Yeah.
therapy, all about urgency, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But let me see if I can play back what you're saying. That I think there's definitely this feels like I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a I could see some purchase with this idea. So let me just see if I can play it back to see if I get it. Let's start with human nature. Human nature is that people that know they're being measured uh, tend to respond to the thing they're being measured against.
Yeah.
and they try to, they it's a score. It's a score in the game
Yeah.
called evaluation, right? And so
Yeah.
you always have to be careful when you like create a measurement because it will have the side effect of that measurement is the thing that's going to get optimized, right? So I love to joke about how like engineering efficiency should be measured in 1,000 lines of code, right? Clocks,
Hmm.
like that's the
Yeah.
classic joke, and it's such a great joke, right? Because like it's the classic. You can see immediately the problem with measuring clocks because then you just get lots and lots of code, and if that code is really inefficient or does stuff that you don't care about or is, buggy, then you just get lots more bad stuff, right? So number of lines of code is a really bad measurement of value. But if you included that in your, like your engineering leveling guidelines, then whoo boy, are people gonna, they're gonna they're gonna
Hmm.
like drive that number.
That's right.
So we know that when we set a marker of we're going to start measuring something, people are going to respond to it, right?
Hmm.
So you're saying like, "Hey, I think that I want to put a marker on number of deploys."
Yeah.
And the theory that you have is there's more upside to number of deploys than there is downside to number of deploys. So when people start focusing on that number, the benefits of kind of thinking of themselves as being judged by that, the benefits of that, and you enumerated a few of those benefits. Smaller, basically smaller changes, which all have their own benefits. Easier to
Hmm.
test, easier to deploy, easier to reason about, easier. So you're saying
Hmm.
like, hey, the benefits of if they choose the strategy of optimizing that number by going small, the benefits of small, lots of small is probably going to be is going to create actually the thing that we're looking at, getting stuff done faster.
Faster.
Now, I guess the question I have is, as I articulate that, it sounds pretty reasonable. What are the hidden? What are the what are the hidden consequences of that?
Okay, I can tell you one. The team and organization will start to do smaller things. And I
Yeah,
don't mean smaller deploys. I mean, like, they won't try to, you won't try to do big, bold
yeah, they'll be
changes.
afraid to do a big change, or they're not afraid, but they'll they'll recognize that the big bold thing that they haven't reasoned about how to break down into small things, they'll instinctually know that that will hurt their number. Whether they say it out loud or voice it, they'll have in their gut like, ah, that big thing, that's gonna that's gonna drive our number down.
Well, I was speaking slightly different. If there's a big thing you want to do and you're not breaking it down, well, then you should break it down and use a feature flag to roll it out in a bunch of little bits and hide it and so on and so forth. I was actually thinking more like culturally, like you just would stop thinking about big bets. Like, let's just compare Babe Ruth to Ichiro,
Yeah,
right? Like, people that are swinging for the fences and missing a lot versus people who are not swinging for the fences but
getting on
getting a lot
base.
of singles.
Yeah,
And you could create a culture of singles, and as a business, then miss,
the bigs.
not even have the comfort of
Yeah,
like, not even see the opportunities to swing for the fences, setting aside that you might also, if you do have a swing for the fences idea, really hard time figuring out how to break it down.
yeah, I agree. That's definitely one of the potential pitfalls of this approach.
Yeah.
We cannot blow this idea out of the water 14 minutes into talking about it. There's got to be more better
No.
idea here than that. I mean,
What do you
that
mean?
it's got we got to be able to sell. I like your idea, small.
Yeah.
So we can't be scared. We have to think about how do we also address swing for the fences.
Well, to me, the way you address swing from the fences is the 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 size of the units you deploy is should be unrelated to your idea.
You're saying that then you just got to get good at like breaking things down and figuring out how to put
Yeah.
stuff behind feature flags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, this there's kind of a just as a tangent, but maybe it's not a tangent at all. to something we talked about in a previous episode about what we were seeing AI do with
Mm.
the size of tasks it could
Yeah.
complete,
Yeah.
right? And that whatever research we were looking at was
Yeah.
like, look, it can successfully complete a 12-minute
Right.
task,
Right. Right. Give it
right?
too
So
big of a
essentially,
task and
it's
it
doing a
blows up.
deploy every 12 minutes,
Yeah. Totally.
right?
Totally.
So that's what we got to get to.
Yeah, and I think that like I mean it's so funny I can think about this in my most recent past. We had this big feature that we were working on at at my main team and it was hard. It was a big feature. It was and the whole team worked on it for for us this was a big feature. It was like the whole team worked on it for like 3 sprints and it felt endless.
Hmm.
And it was like and in each of the sprint retros, we were like, oh man, like we bit off too much, or gosh, we could have broken this down smaller, or gosh. Um, and the good thing is we have a really strong relationship between product and engineering, so that like the product owners were like, yeah, this man, maybe I should have thought about how I could have broken this down even more. Like, what would I have accepted as a partial implementation of this? Um, and of course, we used feature flags, and we kind of like kept shipping, even though the feature wasn't done. So there were lots of little deploys that were kind of behind feature flags. So we are certainly doing that. But I think one of the lessons that the team took away from that was, they did sort of say like, hey, when we got it all done, we were like, yeah, we were really happy with that. And so it's good that we didn't get scared of trying to do big things, right? Like it's good
Right.
that we were like, oh, okay, even though it was hard, like for us, the relative pain of this
Hmm.
felt big. We were really happy at the end, right? That we didn't get scared off by it because it was going to be a bigger type of project than we would normally have taken on. And so that was one great outcome that kind of speaks to we always have this much, small pieces, multiple people working on it, get it merged, get it tested, get it deployed, that philosophy is very consistent with how we work. So I think you just have to be really intentional about that. Like
Hmm.
the one of the really big risks is scaring the team away from doing big things. And so
Yeah.
I feel like some scaffolding around yes, we really want to see lots of pew 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 small deploys, and we believe in you that you can also do big things in that framework, and we're not going to get scared of big things in that framework.
Yeah, I think we don't want to let the tail wag the dog,
Right.
right? Which is this is a metric to help us have a framework for both conveying to our stakeholders that we're going faster, but also a tool for us to ask ourselves, well, let's just say, what would it take for us to go faster? Let's just say I have the door metrics. We use a tool that gives us those metrics. I looked at them earlier today. I don't remember the numbers,
We were
but let's
using
just
a
say
using a that B one.
no. We used to use, I think it was called B linear.
Yeah, B linear.
No, we don't. We use that. We have switched to a tool called Jellyfish.
Oh,
I don't have commentary if it's good or bad,
okay,
actually. I haven't spent a ton of time with it, but I was able to go right in there today and see the number of deploys we've done uh, on day, week, month for the last year, as long as
that's
we've had
cool.
it. And I don't remember the exact number, but let's just say for argument's sake, it was uh, one deploy per person per month,
Oh, okay.
including our product managers and designers and
Oh,
everything, right? I'm just using a rule of thumb here. I think it would be okay to say, what if we got that to two?
yeah, totally.
Right.
Right.
It'd be a
What does it
tool.
take to get that number to go up? Number go up.
What what does it take to get it to go up? Yeah, that's the question we're trying to ask ourselves. Not, well, we don't really want to do this project because it would ruin our velocity, our deploy numbers.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely don't want it. You want to make sure that those words don't ever get uttered. But those are the things that are like in the back of the brain that people don't even say out loud. They don't even know they're thinking it, but they somehow become cautious, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so like I said, I like this idea, and I'm doing the thing that I do when I try to understand an idea better. I try to think out loud and I try to ask questions about it, and those
Mhm.
sometimes come off as adversarial. So hear me that I'm
Mhm.
merely exploring this idea. The part of me that I feel and we talked a little bit about this in the episode on urgency, but the part of me that's like, man, how do we get better at telling our stakeholders that the big thing is coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we talked about urgency, one of the things that we talked a little bit about was we did kind of like talk about this idea, and it's very similar to where you're talking about this small deploy. So I think there's a synergy here between these two ideas. Is this idea of like, well, like if you basically have something to show every sprint, like this is the big problem, right? When you have these big projects, it's like, man, that thing was on the roadmap for 6 months, and then I finally got it, but you didn't, you just were in the back room cooking this thing up, and I never saw any progress against it. And we talked about this idea in the even if you haven't actually changed anything about how fast you're building it stuff, if you just are showing regular updates that are meaningful, like that are really meaningful updates, then I think it's going to create this sense of momentum and progress. And so one of the things I really love about your idea here is if you could basically say, man, look, every one of those, boom, 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 little bullets that we're shooting out here, those are all value. And so you just see, like you said, you'll just get the sense of like, man, that team is really cranking out value, right? And I guess the question so yes, I love all that. And as a developer, you do feel like, man, I just made progress. Like literally today, it was like I had this I was coaching this developer. I had a PR that was similar to this. I was coaching, and I keep telling my team, I'm like, okay, you got two great ideas. Make that two PRs. Don't make that one PR, right? Like, do the thing that you said you were going to do, and while you were doing that, you came up with another idea of a thing that would make it even better. Well, finish the first thing, then make it better, or finish the first thing, then add the second thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so there are two forces that pull us as engineers. One of these is like, I can always see more that I can do, right? There's always more code that I can write. There's always a way for me to make it better. And so many engineers are driven towards like, make it, polish it, polish it, polish it, polish it. And so coaching them to be like, no, no, no. I want you to I want you to do this progressively. Get part done. Get the next part done. Get the next part done. Get the next part done. You'll feel better. We'll feel better. We'll see progress. We'll see these. We'll move number up on this new deployment concept that our CTO Scott wants us to be measured against. Um, but it's a pull. It's a pull. This gravitational force towards I really want to tidy it up. I really want to polish it. Right.
Mm-hmm. Progressive rendering.
Progressive rendering, exactly. I used to like when I was at like early days, like was like some engineer called it stepwise enhancement. So I've
Sure.
always used that term. Stepwise enhancement.
The only way I have ever found for stakeholders to have the feeling that something is coming along fast enough. It has not been burned down charts. It has not been status updates. It's the only thing is demos
Yeah.
because they see it with their own eyes. We talked about different types of learners early on, but for some reason, this is the only one that's worked I've ever seen work for all types of learners. Is they see it, they feel it, they get excited about it,
Yeah.
right? And they're along the journey with you, as opposed to being on the side. That's my career. That is the only way I've ever really seen it to work.
Well, the hard part, I love that. I I love that idea, but you also like to use the analogy of like building a house.
Mhm.
Every remodel I've ever had participated in or house build or whatever, it's like the general contractor that like walks you through when at each step of the way, right?
Mhm.
Like the demo is finished, right? I have never walked into a kitchen remodel where the demo was finished that the contractor hadn't like done something like put tape on the ground of where the new stove was going to be,
Mhm.
or the outline of where the cabinets are going to be, is on,
Yeah.
the uppers are there's like markings on the wall. If the drywall's up, there's markings on the wall where the uppers are going to go in, right? And they walk me through it and they go, "You see, we've done this part, but you've got to picture the next part. You got to picture. I need you to believe that we're going to get to that next phase, right?"
Yeah.
And I think that works for some people that have imagination, but there's also some stakeholders that are just like, look, until you give me the finished product, I'm not satisfied.
Okay, I have two responses for you, and one is just a digression. Which do you want first?
So yeah, go for it. This is your podcast. I'm just
It's
a
not my
guest here.
podcast. Uh, well, I think the sequence in which you build things is different.
Yeah,
Let's just say you're doing a screen in an app. You might first make that screen and have the buttons not do anything, but at least the demo watchers can say, okay, it's here. Like it doesn't work yet. Next week, this button's going to work, and next the
yeah,
week after that, this other button's going to work, and the week after that, this picture's going to be. It's going to slowly. You can see it's just placeholder text right now, but you're going to see it come
yeah.
together, and that's a different mindset for how you build and how you sequence the construction than and it might be slightly less efficient. I'm not 100% sure. I actually have a hypothesis on that, but it might be less efficient, but it's definitely a different mindset. Now, my hypothesis is that it's not less efficient because it keeps you focused on actually building the stuff that's going to make it work.
Can I respond to that real quick?
Of course you can.
First, I love that
It's your
idea.
podcast.
Touche. Well done, sir. Um, uh, I like that idea, and but I will also say that I'm not sure that you have to build it outside in. I think you can build it inside out also.
Hmm.
Like I've seen the demo where it's like, it's got some back end stuff, it's got some front end stuff. The team got the back end stuff working, and they had a tiny little shell of the front end. Didn't
Hmm.
match the wires, didn't have the right
Hmm.
text, but it did. It had a light that went from red to green when
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
pushed a button, and then they can say in the demo, see, that actually was the credit card transaction, you know,
Yeah.
or whatever.
You want to know the coolest demo I was ever part of?
Yeah, tell me.
This is way back when I was at Rover and we were launching this whole new product. I don't know if Rover still has it, but it was on-demand dog walking. Push a button and a dog walker would be there in 30 minutes. Maybe it was
Wow.
60 minutes, but real fast. And because right now, or at least previously to that, it had been scheduled. You had to schedule it, and I don't know if you could schedule same day. But anyway, not only was the engineering team demoing what was getting built, there was a bunch of other stuff that had to happen. Marketing was happening,
Totally.
operations was happening, customer service was happening, and they participated in the demos also,
Mm,
right? Here's the scripts that the agents are going to use. Look, we've got the templates for
I love it.
Zendesk figured out. Oh, here's the marketing copy. So the whole team, as we were trying to lift up this barn of this new product, everybody was doing their part of showing it. It was really fantastic.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
It was cool. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen, actually. I mean, not
Yeah.
in my whole life, but in terms of demos. Oh, can I tell you the digressions for a second? I want to
Yeah,
tell you
tell
the
me the
digressions for a
digression.
second.
Yeah.
We were talking about building from the inside out. This related to houses. Two cool things I've seen. One was a one-time thing, and one is reusable. Uh, I have a friend who's a home builder. He builds fancy homes for rich people, and he had this client where they basically mocked up using like cardboard and wood and plywood in a warehouse, a kitchen for one of their clients. Their clients could actually like walk through
Walk through it.
and feel. And it was a lot of money. It was like the client spent like $50,000 to like get this mock-up. But they were building like a bajillion-dollar house, so it was a drop in the bucket. And that's in fact what the builder said. He's like, "Hey, you're going to build this really expensive house, and you're not confident about this part. Wouldn't it be worth it to you to like get to actually experience it?" So they built a kitchen, which was kind of cool. And then I've seen this thing online, which is similar. It's in a warehouse, and they take your floor plans and they project from the ceiling, probably just using stock projectors. They project your floor plan on the floor in actual size, so you can go in and walk around your floor
Yeah.
plan with your architect and your builder, et cetera, to see if it feels right,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually don't even, for all of our listeners, I'm up here in Seattle. I don't even know if we have that here, but if we don't, maybe that's a business you and I should start, Brad.
Yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. I agree. And it does speak to that whole question of like, you've got these points along the way that you have stuff done, and you want to somehow demo that you're done with it and get and and test it. The
For sure,
the
before you start building, it's way cheaper to change those architectural plans. In fact, this same builder friend told me about a house he was working on, and they were building it, and it went up, and then was pretty well built. I mean, it framed up and stuff, and the client was like, this would have a better view if we had a third floor. That's a big change. They changed it, but like that's a
it's a
big
huge
change,
change.
right?
It's a
Would have been
huge
better to have
change.
that change in the drawings than
Right.
when it was built. So back on topic, I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Two questions for you. Do you agree with the statement that as an industry, we don't have a way to measure productivity? And if you do agree with that statement, can you think of a better way than number of deploys to measure it?
I have to say yes to the first statement because every single owner, every business collaborator, every stakeholder has always said to me, "Why don't I get stuff done faster?" Right? Like
Right.
like that's the age-old thing, right? Like and how many times have you, like you said, like, as a CTO, how many times are you brought in with the sort of this vague sense that, like, gosh, can the engineering team get stuff done faster, right? And you're always
Mhm.
like, and I love your playbook, right? Like I think your playbook is exactly the right playbook, which is first let's make sure that it's operating correctly, then let's make sure that we're predictable, and then we can talk about ways to become faster. And I
Mhm.
100% agree with that playbook, and I don't and it's like I can't count the number of times that some recruiter has called me or some client has called me and it's like, yeah, we got to like get the team to move faster. And I'm like, well, look, man, there's a lot that could be behind that, and so first step is let me go figure out what's behind whatever you're doing. And one of the things that could be behind it, and you've said this in the past, is there could be just an unrealistic appetite for stuff to get done in a timeline based on the configuration in the environment, right? Like, could just be an unrealistic appetite.
Or not even the configuration and the environment, just the fact that sometimes things are more complicated. I remember a time again coming back to Rover where we wanted to change something. It wanted to change how far in the future
Right?
you could book something. Did I mention this before?
Yeah, I think you did. It's something like what? Is it like 60 places in the code where there was this number?
It was like 20, but I remember talking to the guy, I was like, why is this taking so long? It just seems like, isn't
Right.
there just a constant somewhere we have to change? He's like, well, no, let me show you all the stuff that has to change to make
Exactly.
all these date pickers and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, actually, it's a lot of stuff. It sounds so easy. Someone in a meeting just says, hey, we should change that from 90 days to 120 days, right?
Right.
And easy, done, right?
Yes.
That's simple.
Right.
And, but it's hard.
Yeah. Well, and so first of all, I 100% agree with you that I have never. I mean, there are so many books on this. There's so many different white papers. There's so many different tools out there. There's so many different philosophies out there that since there's so much diversity in solutions, it's clear we haven't solved the problem, right?
Right.
Like, as an industry, we have not solved this problem.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of evidence that small deploys have so many positive benefits.
Hmm.
There's a lot of evidence for that. Actually, you just made me think of a framing of this that I want to let's play around with
Just
this question.
I saw a light bulb go off over your head.
Yeah, light bulb just went off my head. Okay, so let's be really frank with each other about the
Hmm.
reality of the 10x engineer.
Hmm.
I've known them.
Yes.
They exist. They are a
Yes.
real thing.
Yes.
I think that there is probably a common set of attributes for those engineers. Like I think that when our business owners say, "I want stuff done faster," like they imagine that if every engineer performed like a 10x engineer, then that's the itch that they're trying to scratch. So let me just start with that. That's my I'm going to posit that. Like if we could get everyone to perform like a 10x engineer, then maybe that would finally scratch that itch.
What percentage of engineers do you think are 10x engineers?
1/10 of 1%, one in 1,000.
Oh, that's way smaller than I would have thought.
What do you think the number is?
1%. I mean, I'm just thinking of a group of 100 engineers. There's one that's really talented.
Okay, I'll go 1%.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm not
I
going
mean, look,
10. I won't go ten
no,
percent.
not 10 at all. No way. I mean, I think one is maybe high. I just think, look, there's also, there's Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, right? There's basketball players that are just more talented too,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Some people are just better,
Yeah.
and I'm not one of them, by the way.
Well, I mean, all right. Well, at the risk of tooting my own horn, I'm a 10x engineer easily.
Okay,
I've always
yeah,
been. I've
I
always
believe
been.
it.
I guess actually I probably should say at least 1% because of the I've worked with at least 1,000 engineers in my career,
Hmm.
and yeah, probably 10 to 20 of them. But I think I was in places that had exceptional luck in getting 10x engineers. So probably 10
Well,
to 20 of them were
it
10x
attracts
engineers.
people.
Yeah, talent attracts talent.
Talent attracts talent.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about like what is it about the 10x engineer? And you've kind of made a point that like maybe it's just raw talent and that's hard to say, but I think there are commonalities. And I think one of those commonalities is the ability for those people to break tasks down in and just think of problems in an incremental way,
Hmm.
right? Like even the ones that would go away at night and come back in the morning and have the massive implementation of the whole system.
Hmm.
When you really interrogated them, they didn't just generate that in whole cloth. It was actually that they did it in a systematic and an incremental way. They were just really good at piling those things on quickly.
Yeah,
What do you
that's
think about
definitely.
that?
I think that's true. I think I want to save for an entirely different episode the attributes of the 10x engineer. But I think
Okay.
that's one. I think that's because I think it's easily an hour conversation. I think that is one of them
But do
for
we
sure.
so okay, so of the attributes of a 10x engineer, we do think that probably one of them is they would naturally excel at this deploy more often.
Well, yes, I would say that, but I would say the inverse also, which is engineers who are not talented at breaking their work into smaller tasks have a hard time going fast.
Yeah.
That's right. And so I don't know if it's the 10x engine. I don't know if it's the breaking it down that makes you 10x or 10x that allows you to break it down. But
Okay.
I I just know that people who take on a big blob of work, you know the story, right? You're looking at the Kanban board and they got one ticket and it's been sitting there for 2 weeks, right? And I think that's because they're not breaking it down
Right.
that and it's just this big giant blob of stuff.
Okay, so the light bulb that went off that you saw me react to
Yeah.
was essentially what you just said, which is I don't know about causation or correlation. I don't care about that. But what I can tell you is there is definitely correlation with 10x engineers and number of deploys.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And probably that's because that is a correlation of being able to break things down into small pieces
Yeah, part of
and
it.
move fast on those small
It's
pieces.
one aspect of what makes it 10xer, I think for
It's
sure.
one x. It was one aspect that makes a 10xer. So my point is though, and you even gave me the counter argument to that, which is guess what? The the non 10xers, it's very rare that they're doing lots of small deploys.
Well, and the other counter argument, the people who are doing large deploys, mega deploys, aren't going fast,
Yep.
or at least they're not giving the appearance of going fast.
Right. So that was the light bulb is I was like, "Oh yeah, if I frame this as like all the 10x engineers I've worked with in my career,
Hmm.
what is one of the traits that they all have in common? Not all
Hmm.
their traits, but one of the traits they all have in common is they would immediately excel at your rubric of, more deploys equals
Yeah.
number go up.
Yeah, there's another thing about this. This is off the 10xer a little bit, but about when we were talking about the 10xer, it reminded me of a specific engineer I worked with who would always say, the fastest thing to ship is no code at all.
Well, I had a colleague that I really admired and respected, and he would always be like, he'd say something really similar. He's like, "There's no bugs in the lines of code I didn't write."
Right, similar idea. And so if what our business wants us to do is go really fast, well, the first thing we should do is not write things. But then the smaller the bit, the faster you can go, right? If it's a one-liner, boom, you can go fast,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And part of that 10xer thing, or maybe it's going fast thing, I don't know which, again, correlation causation is building and designing systems where you can make impactful changes without changing much code,
Yeah. Yeah.
which then gets into all sorts of design attributes, right? But like there's somehow a talent for that, of knowing how to build and design systems where you can get a lot of leverage of like you don't have to change much to make stuff different.
Yeah, it's so yes, 100% agree. And this feels like we've made some progress, and we've gone a couple steps forward on this question of how do we get people to build stuff faster, get stuff done faster. Um, and then I also have the fear of the what ifs, or the counter arguments, which is you know you can also write code in such a way that you've told yourself you're following all the patterns, and then but the like small PRs, like you and I've talked about that. If the PR is over 200 lines, it's probably going to be very difficult for someone to code
Hmm.
review it. And then do you have like literalists on the team that basically then refuse to do code reviews for anything over 200 lines of code, and then next thing you know, you're slowing down because of that, or you're ending up, you're forcing yourself to break things down into too small of a task, and that results in essentially clunkier code that then is harder to modify later. So there's all these like there's all these subtle it's these subtle like cultural anti-patterns that get created even when we're trying to do a thing that we know in general is going to produce better results.
See, this is where engineers are good. It's when they take something that is asking them to change their behavior and they push it to an extreme and then say, look, it's absurd, without recognizing we're in a craft, not a science here,
Yeah.
right? And so it's a craft that looks a lot like science and definitely has some scientific elements to it. But yeah, from time to time, you're going to say, look, I got this PR and it's 2,600 lines, but frankly, there is just no way to make this change without
Right.
making it across
I
the whole
just
system.
I just reviewed a PR where someone was like, "I am sorry, this looks big, but literally I'm just changing the name of a function, but it was in like 1,200 files. I had to change
Right.
it." Yeah. What's the difference between an engineer and a kleptomaniac?
I don't know, actually.
In Engineers take things literally. Kleptomaniacs take things literally.
So I think, isn't the answer to that riddle, what's the difference between an engineer and a kleptomaniac? The answer is a comma.
That's even better. That's even better. That's even better. The linter found the missing comma.
Okay, I think, did we get somewhere today? If
I feel like we got somewhere
we're
today.
on episode like whatever, and episode X, I don't know what episode we're on, and we've actually made some progress. If we make a little bit of
I feel
progress
like we made
every,
progress.
well, here's the deal. I've been talking to my team about it. I'm going to try it out. I have not tried it yet, meaning I haven't gotten to the point where I might get pushback. Right?
Right.
I've gotten
Right.
to the point where everyone I've talked to says that seems like a good idea. We could try that. And the tooling is easy. I mean, we've already got the measurements, and measuring deploys is about the easiest possible thing to measure, right?
Yeah.
There's no judgment. It's just like, did the bot push code out or did it not push code out?
Yeah.
Right. So we'll see. We'll see what we can figure
I
out.
love it. I like it.
Oh,
I feel
here's
like
one
we
other.
got somewhere.
Yeah. Now here's one other dimension. Actually, I could use your help on this one. I've never had to do this part either. How do I sell this to non-technical people? How do I convince them that this is the right way to measure productivity?
Well, I think that this is kind of what I was trying to ask, at minute 20. If you already are doing the thing that we talked about, the idea of having some regular, recurring, not once a quarter, not once a year, checkpoints that include demos of progress. If
Hmm.
you've got that in your culture, then a simple explanation of, hey, sometimes you're going to see demos that represent progress, and I will, we'll explain why they are progress, but when you see the demo, it might not be the end point. It might not be the final thing. Like sometimes it makes sense for you to walk through the floor plan. Walking through the floor plan, if it's just projected on the floor,
Hmm.
is still progress. We've made progress on that floor plan, and that's a good thing. So you've got if you don't yet have a culture of regular recurring demonstrations, I would encourage that as part of this process. I feel like that's a pretty important communication tool.
Let's say you don't have it though, and let's say you can't have it, but you just have to explain to somebody, a CFO or somebody like you're going to say, hey, so and so, let's just say Jill. Hey, Jill, as a business person, if you want to see if your engineering team is being more productive, pay attention to how frequently they deploy and if that frequency is moving, generally speaking, up and to the right. And they're going to say, why? Why
Yeah.
is that a signal of how fast stuff is
I
getting done?
this is a analogy that I would you don't want to play this out before you use this one, but maybe it's a compounding interest thing. Maybe you say like, which what would you rather have? Would you rather have check in 6 months for $1,000, or would you rather I give you $1 a day between now and 6 months from now, and you've got interest compounding on both of them.
That's definitely one way you could say it. Another way you could say it is, well, look, Jill, big things don't go fast.
Yeah, I like that. Until they say, what about a rhinoceros?
I mean, how fast is a rhinoceros?
Pretty fast. I think they can
That
get up to like 60 plus miles an hour.
that is indeed pretty fast. I mean, yeah, they could say, but what about a space? What about a spaceship?
Yeah. Yeah. What? So anyway, I like the point that like in general, big things go slower than small things, and it's just going to depend on if you've got the like how much of a curmudgeon you're, or how much of an antagonistic response. That's why I feel like
Okay,
the proof's in the pudding, right? Like I feel like man, if there's a way to get like if you could kind of and God, there's so many awesome benefits of if you can get a spirit and like you described that rover demo. God damn, man, like a culture where the whole team is like chipping in on a demo and like cheering for each other when they get to the other side of that demo.
that
Man,
was a
that's like
really good
that'd
demo.
be amazing.
We had some really when I was primarily working on Dolly. I think our listeners know Dolly was acquired by TaskRabbit. We had some really great demos at Dolly. Um, I want to say this because I want people to learn from it. We would do demos on Friday morning, and we would do a dress rehearsal at 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon because the first few demos were really rough. They were just like
Yeah.
it was no bueno. It was like, hey, this is embarrassing, guys. We got to get together the night before, kind of like. And we had an MC. There was one specific person. He was the demo MC. He figured out the script each week, and we practiced it. And frequently, between like 2:30 on Thursday and 10 a.m. on Friday when we did the demo, there was a lot of scrambling to fix stuff. But that demo, that dress rehearsal was so powerful
Yeah.
because it got the team focused. Like, oh, these are the gaps in demonstrating this thing,
Yeah, totally.
and it was really,
I
really powerful.
I love that story and 100% agree that like a demo that goes a failed demo is way worse than no demo at all.
Very embarrassing. Yeah. So we got together and did that, and it turned out the dress rehearsal was the really powerful part. Then the
Yeah.
demo was just showing it off. I'm wondering now. I'm thinking. Let's say you start to say to your stakeholders, the Jills of the world, focus on deploys. Could there be any downsides to that?
Well, I mean, I think there's always the downsides of. You mean, did they say that to you? Like, what are the downsides to
No, no.
that?
Now I've let's just start against like now I've got a CEO running around saying to everybody, deploy faster, deploy more often,
Yeah,
deploy
yeah.
more often.
Then you get like bullshit deploys, or you get like you over optimize on that, and you have people that we already talked about that. People get afraid of doing big things. The people that struggle at breaking things down, they feel like they're unable, whatever. They feel like they're dragging the team down. The team feels like they're dragging them down. You have the classic problems with anything that's measured is going to change behavior.
Yeah. But I'm thinking more of of the the CEO person being the one pounding that drum, as opposed to if that's coming from I don't know. Just wonder if that could create a whole different if there's a Pandora's box you're opening when you
I
suddenly
think
have
the only yeah, I think that I'm going to stand by it that that is the normal Pandora's box you get whenever you pick any metric, right?
Mhm.
And you just got to try to think through your unintended consequences. And so this is why I said, like, I think that there's a lot of strong evidence that smaller PRs, smaller things like that are definitely, there's a lot of evidence that that makes you it's generally a better practice,
Yeah.
safer, easier to test, easier to reason about, blah blah blah, all those reasons. So the side effect that we talked, that I think is genuinely the worst possible side effect, is sort of this big project paralysis that can happen. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the harder thing to teach engineering teams to do.
Well, yeah. And the good news is, at least in the organization I'm at right now, we have the opposite problem. The organization has successfully delivered several large projects over the last number of years, which has been great, but actually needs to shift to a little bit more of a, we need to
Let's do
iterate on
that.
these. We need to iterate on these and make them better. And so it naturally fits with what the business wants to do right now. So it'll be good.
Then that sounds like a good thing.
All right. Well, this has felt good, Brad.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you came to this session of CTO therapy to
Yeah.
talk about the V
Thanks,
word.
Doc. Thanks, Doc. All right. Um, until next time,
Until next time, what do we
sm-
say?
smash, rate, and subscribe. All right.
All
Thanks,
right,
everybody.
see you later.
This episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon, or at our website at howmanyctospod.com. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.